All right, without further ado, let's just move on. So in the first part, when we talk about sequence, um, that is basically running forward and forward and forward, right? So we can always try to just say hello world, right? And we can always say print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, for example, we say print hello. When we do that, it is basically just running that print hello, and I'm not sure why it's taking so long. Let's just stop it and rerun. Probably because I was talking too long, and it just takes some time to wake up again, right? So okay, so we have the hello, and we do if we call another print and ask Python to print out the next word, we run it, and it is hello world. No matter how many times we run it, it is always hello world, hello world. That means it is first hello and world. Now, why is that so? Because we have programmed it to be so. Because we have, this is our instruction, told Python that first print hello, then print world, then print the excited exclamation mark. Okay, so there will never be jumbling up of any of these. We are very clear in the left-hand side programming space. We are also, or Python is also very clear on the right-hand side. We call it the runtime space. The runtime space is where your robot starts to come alive and begin its own life. All right, so this part, left-hand side, is the programming space. We do our thinking, and we can take 10 days to think about it. We can take 1 day to think about it. But when we run it, it is in the runtime space. Python takes over, and it is in the nanoseconds that it finishes everything, right? So it's a different time scale altogether. So we need to be aware of that, because you are in charge. You are the programming person in charge, right? So you need to be aware of what Python will do in the runtime space when we wake up the robot and run it. All right, so that's sequence. And we also need the sequential instructions to be valid. For example, if I type some non-existent function, all right, I want to print this is a mistake, however, I misspelled it, then Python will complain, right? It will say, okay, I will print hello, I will print world, I will print exclamation mark, but I don't know what you're saying, so it will print all these and then say there's an error. So it has to be a valid statement. Yeah. So for example, if we forgot to even call the function, right? We say hi, thinking that Python will pick up the text and print out hi. If we didn't even call print to help print out, then when we run it, well, it cannot even start, because Python doesn't even know what you're trying to say here, right? Yeah. So it refuses to start, not because it doesn't behave, first of all, like print hello world and then exclamation mark and then stop, because this is a very serious error. This error is called, what are you talking about? We call this syntax error. Syntax error means it doesn't look right on paper. That means when we look at it, when Python looks at it, no idea what you're talking about. No idea, right? Because it doesn't follow the syntax. It is like saying, in a totally different language, hello, how are you? Ni hao ma, in Chinese. But suppose you don't understand Chinese, then you are like, what? So it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But however, if I speak in English and I say, hello, you are 254. So you kind of understand what I say, but you can't understand the meaning, right? You know every word, but you don't know what it means. So here is that Python doesn't even know what you're talking about. That is the speaking in Chinese case, right? So if we put a comment by putting a hex sign to erase it, ask Python to ignore that line, then we're okay again. But if we say that, instead of print, we say pint. First of all, this is like, hello, you are 254. I know every single word that you say, but I don't know what it means. So here, Python thinks that you're going to call a function maybe. I don't know. It seems like okay, it spells correctly. There's a bracketing and all that. It all looks correct in terms of format. However, when Python, so Python is able to accept all these and starts running. However, when it comes to here, it says, hey, I checked all my dictionary and memory space and everywhere. I cannot find this guy called Pit. What are you trying to say? You know, so it's the meaning part that Python doesn't understand. And so that gives rise to an error after Python agrees to run. It runs, and then doesn't know what you say. That's why you can see that. Okay, so this is syntax error. It stops right there, but semantics error. That means it understands what you're saying, but doesn't understand your meaning or cannot find the meaning. Then we will have this problem. All right. Of course, you always see this red flag coming out in Spider. That is Spider giving you advance warning that if you run, you might have problem. Right. So it will have red flag whether it's for semantic meaning errors or syntax errors. All right. So it will show you the first mistake over here. Once we correct it, it will find more errors, and then line 12 is the error. So whenever you see red flags in Spider, it's not always a good thing to continue running. So for example here, there's red flag, and we run. You know, we might get some results. There's always an error here. Worse is there is no red flag given by Spider, and there is mistake in the meaning. I wanted to print this is a welcome, and then I don't know what I was doing, and I typed this is a mistake. So first of all, Spider says everything looks okay in terms of Python's language and grammar. So it looks okay. Secondly, when you run, Python doesn't complain because you're just asking to print a bunch of text that it doesn't know what they are. They're just a bunch of bits and bytes that it sends out to the screen. So it sends out, and when your greeting card or your email is read by your customer, your client, this is a welcome because this is a mistake. Oh no, are you trying to insult me? Am I doing you a bad thing? All right. So I don't think I'm welcome here. So bye-bye, right? And there goes your customer. So that is very serious when you make semantics error. So try not to do that. And whenever there is red flag, definitely you have to re-examine your code. But even when there is no red flag, you want to examine your code a few times. So some of the features in Python allow us to self-examine, to be self-consistent, to be very clear in our logic, and we definitely want to adhere to the building block structure that Python offers. A bit like when we want to build beautiful creatures using Lego blocks, we must follow the way the Lego components allow us to stack together. Yeah, so we cannot try to do, as far as I remember, they're all squarish or rectangular. If you want to do triangular kind of connections, you cannot, right? So you cannot, or you want to do a circular connection to each other. No way, because the building blocks are squarish. Okay. So that's sequence. All right, moving on. We have the second logic block in Python, how it looks at the world, how it thinks. That's called condition. This is, of course, very, very important. Condition basically is a statement started with if, right? So fortunately, every time we see if, that is definitely a condition statement. And again, fortunately, every time we want to build some smartness in the decision, right? Because that's when we program, we think, why don't I ask Python to check my bank account, right? Look at my bank account. If bank account is less than $100, then print work harder, something like that. So when we have that intention, we can turn it into if. So in Python, the correct way to institute a conditional statement is always if, right? So we start with if. Now, if can take several patterns. So let's begin with our let me just start a new file. All right. So if we can always say if right, my account, right, let me set my account to be $50, right? So if my account has less than $100, right, then right, so the colon is to say that that's the end of the condition here. So if starts off tells Python, look, attention, check this calculation. If this calculation is correct, is true, is met, right, is met, the colon says that's the end of the calculation. Then, so in the next statement block, we will print work harder, like this. So that's a warning, right? Then that's it. So let's run this. And Python says work harder because it has detected that my bank account has got $50, which is less than $100. And notice that the if statement by itself is okay. It's done already. It's complete. So we are asking Python if this is correct, if this is true, then print work harder. However, if it is not true, do nothing. Do nothing, right? So we say, we say, I will work harder, right? So if you want to say this, let's run again. Notice that this second print is outside. That means it is not what the if statement will execute. The if statement will execute this part of the code if the condition is true. If the condition is true. So what does this, when does this get printed? Always. Because there's no condition, it always gets executed. So we'll see that here. It will first says work harder, and then because this is done, this is the next line in the sequence, right? First line 8, line 9, 10, and then line 11. That's the sequence. I will work harder. But you should respond this only when your bank account or my bank account is low. So actually we want it to be part of this. Whenever my account is low, we will print my reminder, work harder, and then I will promise to work harder. That should be the right scenario. Yeah. Let's revert back. Suppose now I have a lot of money, 120, which is not below 100. Then we'll print. You see that work harder instruction is no longer there, no longer printed, because this results to false. Let's ask Python, is my account less than 100? Python says false. False, not true, right? So in other words, since it's false, you don't execute whatever statement there. It has some smartness, yeah? And then it will print, I will work harder. But that's a bit wrong in terms of the meaning, because when I got money, I can relax a bit, right? So I actually want to print, I will relax a bit. But this is to be printed only when the condition, my account is not less than $100, right? So this is the else part of it. So to do that, we should institute else part optionally, right? Optional. So if you have an else part means if my account is less than, you will do this part, all right? Or longer, because you can have many body statements like that. So if my account is low, then do print and then do print, but don't do anything that is inside the else. So we'll print the DN, which is always right because that's the end of the statement. But we want to remind ourselves, work harder and I will work harder. I make a promise, right? When my money is low, less than 100. However, when money is high, then you will say, okay, I can afford to relax a bit. Okay. And you wouldn't want to say I will work harder because it's not the right context.